Get things moving. You ready, Jen? Good morning, everyone. I'm Brad Dyer with Town & Country Bank, who also happens to be the title sponsor for today's program, so welcome. I'd like to introduce Officer Mike Badger, or former Officer Mike Badger. He's was a licensed real estate salesperson and broker in Illinois for 41 years, past instructor and member of Capital Area Realtors for over 25 years. Served over 19 years in law enforcement, spoken to numerous groups about topics such as shooting incident response, robbery response, neighborhood safety, and crime prevention. He's also former coordinator of Crime Stopper program and just recently retired from the Springfield Police Department last week. Welcome, Mike, and Officer Matt.
It's so nice to be not only back talking to realtors, people I've worked with for over 25 years, member of this association for over 25 years, but also back in person. We're not, yeah, we are recording this and it is available, but we have live people in this group, things that, how long ago was it? And look, we're turning the corner, we're almost there, and it's so nice to do this. I was scheduled to do this in March of last year. We had the date, and it wasn't publicized yet, but back then I started thinking about what I might want to talk about, and then all of a sudden the door shut and we got it open again. There are a lot of realtor safety issues out there, and they are very important issues. The National Association of Realtors has some guidelines out with. I saw on one website there was 50 realtor safety tips. Another one, I think they upped it to 62 realtor safety tips. And they are all important. But that's not what we're going to address today. I want you to remember that was probably part of your 56 safety tips for realtors. That's all online. There's probably brochures available and so forth. And they're important. I might touch on a couple of them, but really we're going to talk about some other issues that they do affect realtors, and they affect the world. They're from the world we live in today. It's so much different and sometimes more dangerous. There are many things better. Technology can be great, and technology can be a real pain. But anyway, I'm going to focus on some of the things that sometimes we haven't thought about as realtors. Some of them are disturbing topics. Some of the sensitive issues might make you feel uncomfortable. That's fine, and I understand that. And as police officers, we sometimes daily have to deal with these sensitive issues, and sometimes we almost get immune to them, but really we don't. It's always in the back of our mind as police officers. But the initial introductions, it might disturb you. If you do, and again, the version I'm going to do today is the soft version. I'm really not going to get into much. But when I still talk about death of loved ones, overdoses, how many, I'm not asking this just rhetorically, but almost every family has somebody in their close family that's addicted. That's the way the world we live in today. So I'm going to be talking about overdose deaths. That comes into this, believe it or not. So if you do feel uncomfortable, or if it's something that you just really you think, yeah, I'd rather not go ahead, and if you want to step outside, please do. But we talk about these things because we have a specific learning objective. These are things that affect our lives, our careers, and by learning some things about them, we should be able to deal with them better and make and prevent some things that could happen. Our knowledge is something that's going to carry us forward in a more positive way. So I'm not going to get into depth into these topics, but I am going to touch on them. One of them I'm going to be talking about first is mass shooting incidents. It's something that we have. It's around our country commonly. And do we think of it in our own offices, or while we're at the grocery store, while we're at church? We don't generally think about that, but it's a reality that we probably should think about. At the police department, I did a 2-hour program on citizen response to active shooter incidents. That's a 2-hour program. And we're going to get a pared down version, about 10 or 15 minutes of that. And I'm going to try to cram 2 hours in. So it's going to be difficult, but the couple things I touch on, and then at the end I'll repeat. Those are the things, just by having been introduced to that, you're going to be better prepared for it. Now, if you have the 2-hour deal, you're going to be more prepared. So we are going to touch on that. The objective of this is to increase the survivability of victims. Anybody that's in a setting like that, if you've had an introduction to this, your chances of living through it are greater than a person who hasn't. I gave that program to several groups. I would give it to groups as small as 15, 20 people, up to a couple hundred people around the area. Once I was giving it to a pretty large group. There were over 100 people in that group, and I have a cell phone and a work cell phone from the police department. This is, of course, while I was police department. And while I was giving the presentation, I had a little page, I looked at it in a break, and while I was giving that presentation here in Springfield, there was a mass shooting incident in San Bernardino. So it can happen anytime, anywhere. It touched us locally here, and even locally in the board, the incident at Bunn. I mean, that was a terrible, tragic incident that I don't know what preparation they had. That was my beat. And that was something I could have talked to them about prior to. You know, now it's in other hands. I'm sure they've had a lot of meetings I was involved in, but it can happen anywhere, anytime. So I'm going to give you just a few basic things on how to prepare yourself for something like that. I want you to have in your mind a pre-planned response. And again, it isn't everything you're going to do, exactly what you're going to do, but if you've thought about it ahead of time, you have pre-planned, and you're going to have a better response to it. I wanted a plan that you can remember, so I'm going to get it as simple as I can, and a plan that you can execute. Something that you can do to help save your life. So we'll get started with it. Right now it's April 15th. Everything changed in our world as far as mass shootings, and had gone on decades ago. I remember the Texas Tower incident at University of Texas in the 60s. But April 20th, 1999, 5 days from now, it will be the anniversary of the Columbine shooting incident. That incident changed everything. We had shootings in schools before, but that first mass shooting was one that brought this home, and it kind of, the tidal wave, it's still going on. There will be more, whether it's in schools or not. There are precautions schools are taking. There are precautions churches are taking. I see a couple of people out here at a church that I've worked security. They have security officers or plainclothes people in their churches just to prevent things like that. So we are, as a society, dealing with it, but we can't deal with everything. So as individuals, we have to prepare for it. Most of these shooting incidents, not all, but a majority of them are over 90 seconds from the first shot to the last. Most of the time, police respond in 3 minutes or less to a shooting incident. Now, in rural areas, we had a Texas church. They had quick response from a person across the street, but it wasn't police. So if you're going to have a rural incident, you're probably going to have a longer response. But metropolitan areas, you usually have a pretty big response. When there's a call that goes on something like that, it's immediate. All officers, no matter what jurisdiction, will respond to it, and they will respond, and even the police response is different. We will immediately go inside to try to identify and take down the shooter. There used to be a little second of planning, but that planning, those seconds were too valuable. So now it's go in and you have to do it. So that's what the police are trained to do. I will tell you, there's and we're not going to do any notes or anything on the board, but if you think, Patty Nelson was a teacher at Columbine, and her call to 911 is on YouTube. And I mean, it's one of those, it's disturbing to listen to it, but if you think about it, you could search on YouTube for the Columbine 911 call or anything like that, if you want to hear it, about what goes on in an incident like that. Again, they weren't prepared, none of us were prepared. Some of the things that we teach, if she had known at the time, she was outside the library, or was inside the library where 10 of the 12 students that were killed were right within reach of her. If she'd have known some things, there could have been life saved, maybe, I don't know. Who knows? Could have been more loss if she did save one, then it could have gone somewhere else. So we can't say. But anyway, if you want to hear something like that's part of the longer program we do. But from the moment there are shots, you hear a loud crash. You hear a loud something. We have an immediate human response to that, and it's called the normalcy bias. And that is, we explain it away. We say, at Virginia Tech, the shooting's there. One of the instructors said, I heard the shots, and I thought, that sounds like somebody chopping wood. This is on a college campus, in a college, nobody was chopping woods in that area. But our brain tricks us to, push it up. In Sandy Hook, teachers thought, this was an elementary school, and they thought, one of the teachers said, I thought it was just firecrackers going off in the hall. I don't think there's, maybe in high school, middle school, but it's very, very unlikely. But we have that. So the first thing I want to remind you to do is when you hear something, immediately, don't hit the ground and serpentine out or whatever, but recognize that this is something that I need to immediately focus on and take action. We do have videos, a lot of places have surveillance videos, and you can see, I've seen some of the video, and it'll show when you've had a crash or you've had that immediate sound, or maybe a gunman entered the room. Some people immediately go out the door, and some people don't. That's what I want you to be prepared to take, that immediate action. Walk out the door. Don't grab your cell phone. Don't grab your purse. Leave the room. That right there, one quick reaction could save your life. The second thing that we have, and this is the deliberation phase. Our human brain is the highest, most developed brain of any organism or whatever in the world, but we still have physiological responses that even the smallest lizard has. When we hear some kind of a threat, whether it's loud or even something we encounter face to face, we immediately, our brain releases chemicals into it's the fight or flight thing. The muscle, the blood in your system goes to your large muscle groups, your arms, your legs, so you can fight, defend yourself, or run. But when it goes to all those places, those muscle groups, where is it exiting from? It's leaving your brain. So you do not think as clearly when you are confronted with an immediate stressful situation. So we want to make sure that we can maybe offset some of those. There are ways. Now, you can't immediately go around what nature is going to provide inside your body, but if you take a couple deep breaths, you can help restore. your circulation. You can get your mind. So that's, again, your immediate reaction would be to leave. But the second is take those couple breaths and think, okay, what am I going to do? I want the time between the initial threat and your reaction, I want to decrease that time. Some people will freeze and they'll stay there. I mean, they'll just freeze. They haven't thought about it, they don't know what to do. Some people will take action after 10 seconds, some after 6. You know, I want, if you have a couple of breaths where you can react within 2 seconds or 3 seconds, you're going to be a lot better off. And again, more likely to live through something like this. This stress signal, what it does to your brain is the hypothalamus activates the sympathetic nervous system, and then you have a whole dump of adrenaline into your body. So that adrenaline dump, again, gives you some muscle strength, but we're not, at this point, we're not going to be prepared to fight. We don't want to use those muscles unless we have to, and we'll get to that. But it also, when it goes to, when you lose that, when you get the adrenaline dump, you have what's called tunnel vision. You no longer see what we see now. Your eyes dilate and you can only see, you focus on very little. You have, your heart rate increases, and again, an increase from 80 or 90 to 120 or 130, you move up. If your heart rate goes up to 180 or so, you lose control of your mind completely. So if we can keep that heart rate down a little bit, again with those breaths, you're going to be able to react better. But you also lose your fine motor skills, your fingers. It's something that we'll come back to that in another part of the presentation. And this is something that's not just going to affect you as individuals. This is something that affects police officers. After police officers are involved, or maybe after you've been involved in an accident, a car accident, your hand shakes. Well, I'm not afraid, I'm not nervous, but your hand is shaking. That's because you had this adrenaline dump into your system. So we've got, police officers aren't immune to some of the problems. I mean, with reaction, the reactions we have can be, there's a humanness to us. We are human. And as prepared as we are for shooting incidents, I mean, we get hundreds of hours of training. We shoot thousands and thousands of rounds of ammunition. Yet, are we perfect? If you watch the news, you know we're not. There are mistakes that will be made. We already get a lot of training. You know, I was an officer before as a realtor from 1978 to 84 as a police officer, and then I came back to the department in 2008. The amount of training we got as police officers in my second term as opposed to my first was absolutely amazing. We would shoot, we shot out, we used to shoot paper targets, you know, and try to get it at the bullseye, and that was it. But now we're training moving targets, shooting out of guns, going into houses, shooting live ammunition. So the training is there. It's only, we need more training because we have deadly weapons, but we're still human beings. And so we still have those basic physiological responses to a shooting incident that you're going to have. And that's why, if you have some time to think about this, again, we're going to try to save your life. So, breathing, as I said, for a couple seconds, slow down the situation, and then focus your thoughts on what the situation that you're faced with. And again, all this is under, you're planning, right now, we're planning ahead for that. You know what you're going to do now because we've talked about it. You're going to do a better job at it. So you're going to focus your thoughts on the three things that you can do when this action occurs. The decisive moment, when it's time for you to take action. The shots, the pause, and this decisive moment, you take action. And that is avoid, deny, defend. Again, when we talk about the fires where the kid has stopped, drop, and roll, and they had a stop, hide, and something or other out there a few years ago, but they did some research, and they didn't think that was as, the avoid, deny, defend is now the definitive what you should do. So we're going to take just a couple more seconds to talk about avoid. Now, avoid doesn't mean work from home, okay? It means avoid the shooter. Leave as soon as possible, like I said. Get out of there. Don't worry about anything else other than your safety. Immediately leave. And again, you don't have to scream and run out, because if you heard something and you're not 100% sure, but it makes you think and you're uncomfortable, just get up and walk out. Know the exits. You probably know your office, but most likely you know the doors. If you have a big office, you know the ones that you use all the time. Are there other exits? Think about that. If you're in County Market, take a look. If you go there and do all your shopping there, take a look at the exits out back, or the back room, or how to get back there. That's important, very important to know. And the idea of secondary exits, and that's things like, is there a window that can be breached by throwing a chair through it? I mean, some of this glass is thick, but there are, sometimes in a back storeroom of a retail store, they'll have ladders that go up to above walk-in coolers, or just things like that. That's a perfect place to go. If you can get up a ladder, you're safe, because if the guy is coming up the ladder after you, you're going to be in a position to defend yourself much better. So, avoid by figuring out something else to do. Avoid that shooter. Deny. Okay, you can't get out of there. You're in the situation. The person's in your building. Find a room. Now, and at this point, I do want to say there have been situations where people have decided, oh, I'll play dead and lay on the floor and act like I'm dead. That doesn't work, because shooters will generally, people on the ground, they'll take shots on people just laying. So don't think just playing dead is going to work. But deny them access to you if you can't get out. Any kind of room that's locked doors. This door right here, and we'll deal with that, but first of all, if you could lock yourself in there, you do it. But if you took off a belt and wrapped it around this thing here, or if it was door, if they were coming in from the other side, this door couldn't be opened if this was secured. So deny access to get to you. When you get into a place, if that's your only alternative is to go somewhere and try to secure yourself, barricade it, lock it in every way you can, barricade it. I think of the mass shootings I looked at, of the many dozen, there were 2 mass shootings where they defeated a locked, secured door. They shot their way through it. But most of the time, a shooter will attempt to gain entry. They'll stand there and try to figure it out, but they'll move on. They're not going to stay unless they have a reason to try to defeat that door. They're going to move on. They've got their reactions, and standing there and trying on one door is probably one they're not going to do. So if you have that barricaded in every way you can and secured, that's your first step in that room. Second of all, when you're in that room, it's not that important to call 911. Somebody has probably already called 911. After a long period of time, if you want to make a very silent call, but first silence your phones. Absolutely. Silence your phones, because if they know there's somebody in there and they hear a phone ringing or anything else, then they'll spend more time trying to defeat that locked door. But turn out the lights. When you're in a room barricaded, have the lights out. You're going to be in there, your pupils will adjust to the darkness. This person is probably coming in from outside in the light. When they walk into the room, they will not be able to see you, or their chances of seeing you have really diminished quite a bit. So if they do defeat your barricade, your locks, whatever you've done to secure that door, they're going to walk into a dark room that they can't see. And that's where avoid, getting out, deny, barricade. The third step, and the last thing you have to do, is defend yourself. It's something that you have to get a mindset of take yourself out of the fear and realize it's time for me to get angry. No holds barred. You have to do whatever you can to kill that person because he's trying to kill you. And I am going to talk a little bit later about concealed carry, but for the time being, yeah, that's when if you're concealed carry, they walk in and you, but most of us aren't. But that's the time when concealed carry really works. But if somebody's walking into a room, everything from, I mean, you know how much this would hurt if it was stuck in my eye? If you can do this, and usually when you're barricaded, or when you're with a group that's hiding from a person, you might be there 10 people, 20, maybe 30 people, all in one room, and your odd, it's 30-1 against this person. So if you know the guy's shooting out the, maybe there's a side window to the door, and they're gonna shoot out the window, reach in and unlock it. You didn't have furniture to barricade. If you all attack that person at one time, you're likely to save lives. Maybe your own, maybe not. But if you have a plan and say, we're going to each get what we can, a stapler, a coffee cup, a thermos. I saw one, again, this was a real video. It was a city council or school board meeting in Florida. A lady went up to the guy with a gun, walked up behind him and hit him with her handbag. It didn't stop him, but she had the right mindset. She got out of there too. She hit him and she took off. So anyway, avoid, deny, defend. Do everything you can to defend yourself physically. You're in a position, or be in a position, if you think they're going to enter the room, and again, they can't see, people here, and immediately be in a position to attack them before they see you. When they walk in, they should be pummeled. Beat them to the ground and get that weapon. It sounds sometimes like really basic stuff, but this is the stuff that can save lives. If you have the willpower, you've taken that combat breath early on where you're going to be thinking properly, you're likely to maybe avoid being killed or injured in a shooting incident. So that is the 10 or 15 or 31-minute version of citizen response. If you want the full thing where we show videos of some real, let me know and I'll try to get somebody in the police department. I don't have access to the videos anymore. I might be able to get them because I'm still, even though I'm no longer a police officer, I am a certified trainer for this. So any organization or church or whatever, I'd be glad to talk about that more. Any questions on that part of it? Again, we'll have a session at the end for all the other questions you might have. Now, I want to talk, another thing I want to go over, it's kind of in the realtor safety, or it certainly is, maybe it's not realtor safety, but it's something I think, a realtor responsibility, and it's something to do with law enforcement, is some of the homes, and we've been listing homes, and people have jewelry, and they have artwork, and we've always been aware of that. Part of your listing presentation should be some discussion of your valuables. People might have a $2,000 or $3,000 watch that when they first got it, they thought of it as a $2,000 or $3,000 watch, but now they've been wearing it for 10 years and they don't think that much about it. It's still a $2,000 or $3,000 watch that they might set on the nightstand, or they might set by the kitchen sink, or who knows what. Part of your listening presentation should be a discussion of their valuables. This is not uncommon. Now, again, we don't have open houses like we used to. It used to be there were dozens of open houses that we opened up. Anybody in the public to take your picks of the houses and anything in them if you want. We didn't have much of that, but we still had it. The thing that I'm really concerned about right now, though, is we're aware of the opioid crisis. When I started giving presentations maybe 10 years ago, I would talk about the opioid crisis and say, you know what, it's here. And I would say, as police officers, we know about it. Heroin, that's not in Springfield. That's somewhere else. Or I heard in West Virginia they've got a bunch of that, or Ohio. But anyway, well, now we all know. It's what it is, and it's a very, very severe problem in our society today. Okay, so we heard of that 5 years ago because it was on 60 Minutes, or we saw Pharma, the documentary. But really, is that a secondary or a third or a fourth? It's not a focus of our attention of our society. But last year, and the stats I got were from September to September, so it's not January to January, but anyway, there were 87,000 deaths due to opioids, overdoses in our country. And that's the greatest number ever. It's not going down yet. We had a slight dip, but it's up. Opioid is still a crisis. There has been some legislation to address it. They've made treatment more available. It is such a big problem, though. It's going to take years, and it's going to take a lot to get it solved. And I still don't know exactly what they can do. But it is a crisis that we're faced with. And those 87,000 deaths, I have to tell you, here in Springfield and in most communities now, all the police officers have Narcan. We go, when we have an overdose, whether it's police gets there first, or fire, or an ambulance, they can administer Narcan. And I've walked in several times, and the person is dead on the floor with a needle sticking out of their arm, and they're turning blue. And with Narcan, we administer Narcan, and within 2 minutes or 3 minutes, they're up walking around normal. These are people that had no pulse, they had no breathing. They were, for all intents and purposes, gone. But now, with what we have available as police officers, we're able to bring them back to life. Wait a minute. 87,000 people died last year. What if we didn't have Narcan? I think the numbers would probably be triple that, 4 times that. I mean, I would think so, because as citizens of the community, you don't realize how often police officers, paramedics, and firefighters are bringing people back to life. It's a daily, well, Matt, is it daily or is it 3 times a week? I mean,
several times a week.
yeah, it's all shifts, all the time. Daytime, gas stations, somebody might be in the bathroom, on the ground, sitting out. I'm driving down Veterans Parkway in my life, or in my mind, thinking about the spots where we've had people. Parking lots, shopping centers, gas stations, where they've been dead, brought back to life. And so, it's a problem. How does that, wait a minute, we're realtors, what's he talking about that? I don't, first of all, yeah, it happens to our families, our friends, and so forth, or somewhere out there it's touched us. But as realtors, where did that enter the equation? Well, has anybody, don't raise your hand, has anybody had any pain in their back in the last 5 years. Has anybody had any knee pain? Has anybody gone to the doctor for anything and got a prescription? Everybody raised their hand. So we've all had something. And a few years ago, you'd get a prescription for hydrocodone, oxycodone, OxyContin. They'd give you 2 months worth for your pain in your elbow. There was a real problem that there has been some legislation to address. They're not giving you 4 months for it. 4 months worth. They're not giving you 60 tablets. They're only prescribing 30. Well, when you had that pain, and believe me, or if you have some outpatient surgery, when you get home, you need that medication. You need that pain medication. It's important. Odds are you probably didn't take it for 30 days, though. You may have taken it for 3 days and then got on some aspirin with codeine or something a little bit milder, and then gone on to aspirin. And did you throw away the other stuff? No, you didn't. Very few people do. If you put it in the toilet, then you're messing up our ecosystem and all that. So you don't want to throw it away or throw it in the trash and then make the dumps all mess up the water table for future generations. So we leave it in our medicine cabinet. Now they do have places where you can use prescriptions. We had a DEA. Until this year, we had an annual drug pickup day. I was at IV, other officers at other places. And people brought in, you wouldn't believe the volumes, the hundreds and hundreds of pounds of stuff I would get from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. People bring it up. Now they have drop-offs where you can drop that, or Walgreens has one too. But anyway, most people keep it in the medicine cabinet in case you might need it again, whatever. Guess what? Those 30 pills, or say you have 27 left, the street value of those pills is $10 to $15 each for hydrocodone and all the schedule, whatever, the higher pain medications. $10 to $15 per pill. Okay, maybe you're not dealing with that. Well, how about some of the Xanax, the antidepressants, the sedatives? Street value per pill, and again, you might have 60, is $5 to $10 each. Now, I'm not telling you how to get by till your next closing, okay? I'm not suggesting that. But I am telling you that you have a commodity, not only in your home, but every one of your customers' homes. And the people that are addicted to those medications, the opioids, they have to get them. I mean, I talk to them when I take them to jail. A lot of times they do petty crimes. I asked him, a normal-looking guy, a guy, if my daughter was dating him, I thought, well, he's a nice young man. And he was addicted to heroin, and I asked him what he did. This guy he filled up a shopping cart with a Red Bull and just wheeled it up to his car because he knew he could sell it for $200 or $300. So anyway, I said, why? How's it happen? Well, I get various answers. Sometimes it was, well, we were just all drunk and we decided to try something and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, we didn't get into why he started on it, but I talked to him about it and, getting treatment, this and that. And he said, all I want to do, if I can get $50 a night, that's all I'm trying to do. He was the Red Bull, but they'll break and take long. If they can get their $50 a night, they won't get the high, but it'll keep them from getting sick. So they're just trying to get by for another day, every single day. And there's dozens of them. They are in the city of Springfield, in Verdon, and every other place in this country, people that are addicted. So now, if he finds that people start locking up their lawnmowers, or they have a store employee watching Red Bull. One of his alternatives probably would be, let's go into some medicine cabinets. I can tell you right now, a lot of people keep it by their prescriptions, their pills, by their kitchen window, by the kitchen sink, that window over it. That's a target for burglary right there. Burglars will go around the back of the house, look in the kitchen window and see if they can see prescription bottles. But they can also, again, we don't have open houses, but we still meet people at homes who may very well be interested in stealing drugs. And if they're smart, and some of them are kind of smart, if you've got 30 pills in a bottle, you don't take 30, you take 20. You pour out a bunch in your hand, you leave a little, put it back up there, and you will never know, and the seller is likely not to know. So that's something that I think, oh gosh, and if you have people that maybe recently passed away, cancer patients and so forth, the fentanyl is an unbelievably strong drug for pain, that kind of pain, and it's in great demand. They will not only will have thefts of not only the antidepressants and the opioids, but even your blood pressure medicine or something that doesn't get you high. There are people that will steal that because they can sell that on the street to young recreational drug users that don't know what the heck they're doing. And they say, take this will get you high. And kids will buy it. And I remember, I'm not saying I did that, but I was a kid once and I was dumb. So kids do dumb things and they will take stuff they don't even know what it is. Now your really good drug dealer that wants to help them get a little high off of the junkies selling them might lace it with fentanyl. And all of a sudden, uncontrolled, maybe it gets them a little high, maybe it kills them. These are very dangerous things. But these are situations that I want you to address with your sellers. When you walk into a house, make that little scan. Don't go into the medicine cabinet on the first walk through the house because I guarantee you won't get the listing. But at some point in time, maybe it's at an open house, you might take a little look. And if you find out that there is medication out there, that's something that could get into the system and be a danger. And I don't even know, what's the liability that we have? I don't know. If somebody overdoses and then the parents find out that they got it from your open house or your showing, and then you get an attorney cross-examining you and said, well, yeah, you had Joe Smith went through your house. You stayed with him the whole time, right? Well, no, I couldn't because I had Joe and I had the Davises were also looking at it, and the Joneses were also, so I couldn't stay with Joe the whole time. Well, you mean you didn't stay with him while he was in the bathroom with this dangerous medication? You could open yourself up for some liability for maybe the individual that wants to get the drugs. But then there's also, and I'll close out this section, we do have groups that start in the morning in Joliet. And now some of them do retail thefts, some of them do scams, but some of them might be these drug, they'll call, make a couple of appointments, and see a couple houses, and then within 2 hours in Joliet, next stop is Bloomington, make a couple of appointments, do this all ahead of time, they'll have the phone numbers made for a couple of appointments, see a couple houses in Bloomington from 2 to 3:30, then they're down to Springfield from 4 to 5, over to Decatur, and then Edwardsville. And in 1 or 2 days, they'll have huge hordes of either they're stealing property or drugs. It's the people that look legitimate, and again, at $15 a pill, and thinking over a course of a day, the 2 or 3, they could literally get hundreds and hundreds of it. It's not a bad day's work. So it's out there. It may be 2 couples where they'll, I've got me and our best friends, and they want to see the house with us, and then they'll split up inside, and maybe just one large group. Gosh, how many times have you had it where, at least I know I would have it where I would think, okay, I've got to keep these people, but it's like herding cats. I mean, you have Uncle Dave going up here, and somebody's checking the garage, and maybe they just happen to unwittingly, bring somebody with them who's into this where the rest of the family isn't. So I want to take it off of you and onto the sellers. So that's something, part of your presentation. Remember that, think about it. The last kind of thing on the plan presentation was concealed carry. Is it enough? I don't know percentages of concealed carry, but what time is it? Oh gosh, we'll be good. There are a lot of people that have concealed carry. Concealed carry can be very, very valuable. But as a realtor, as a safety precaution when you're showing property, it's probably not going to be, and I say probably, of a lot of value. The more important thing that you should, and I'll come back to why, but the realtor safety tips, never walk in front of people when you're showing, walk behind you. Don't go into a basement with somebody if you're by yourself, or into dark rooms, things like that. Those are all in the realtor safety tips, and those are important. But don't have a false sense that because you're armed, you're going to be able to defend yourself. Because, again, as a police officer, we're armed, they know it, we know it, we've had hundreds of hours of training and shot thousands of rounds, yet if somebody goes like this to me with a gun, it's going to take me anywhere from 1.7 to 2.4 seconds for me to get my gun out and put fire on him, and he could have shot me 5 times in that time frame. And that's the same as a concealed carry person. If you have a weapon, maybe even in a purse, and then remember when I talked about you lose the ability, your fine motor skills? One of the videos of a shooting incident, a lady in France, shoot her in the store. She's trying to get her baby out of her stroller to run, and she's probably done it, every day, many times, taking the baby in and out of something. She couldn't get, and it wasn't strapped in, she just couldn't get the baby out. And it just shows her trying and trying. Fortunately, eventually she got out, and the shooter did not make it. He shot 2 other people in the store, but she was able to get out. So your fine motor skills of getting it out of your purse or access to it where you might have it isn't going to be what you think it is or what it is when you're out shooting targets. It's a lot different when they have a weapon on you, when you're in that phase of alarm. Your physiological, your body just will not allow you probably to defend yourself with a weapon if they've already got theirs out. The first thing they're going to do is probably get your cell phone. Everybody carries a cell phone. They're going to try to take that. And the second thing, and criminals are aware of concealed carry laws, they're going to check for a weapon. So I don't think, for the purposes of protecting yourself, showing property, or at open houses, things like that, that concealed carry, I want you to take another level beyond. Don't think that your concealed carry is the end-all to safe. It's scanning an area when you walk into a house. Maybe you're going to show a vacant house. Take that one little scan, just like we do as officers. We're looking for somebody when we go somewhere. When you walk into an empty house, if you see a sliding door partially open, if you look for it, you might see it. If you don't take that little scan, you might not notice it. And if that door's open, somebody could have already entered that house, and they could be hiding in the bedroom, and wait to attack you. So there's a lot of safety precautions that, look at the Realtor's Guide. We don't have time for that, but take that scan. That's probably the most important thing. Don't show property at night. And I know it gets dark at 5 o'clock in the winter, but you've got to either take somebody with you, and I tell you, I know, I understand, I get it. I was a realtor for 24 years, and we have to show houses, and we can't always get somebody to go with us. And we say, well, I'll be okay this. Do your best to either get somebody to go with you, or if you have to say, sure, my husband and I will meet you there at 7 o'clock. And even if you can't get somebody with you, make them think because I know Kathy's done that before. I mean, I've been with her many times when she's shown property, but on the phone, where she said, yeah, my husband will meet you there, and they haven't shown up. So what was it? We don't know. Make sure you just do everything you can with safety in mind. We can't prevent everything, but all we can do is try to prepare, think about things in advance, and hopefully we'll have a safe career that meets all of our objectives and everything. So now I want to open it up because we can go back to questions on the active shooter. We can talk about the prescriptions. We can talk about general safety things. Is there anything that I didn't get into enough detail, or any questions that I left open that you might? Yes.
So what are your thoughts about something a little less lethal for realtor safety? Tasers or
They're good to
pepper
have.
spray or...
The sprays are good to have, and I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't even mention self-defensive courses. And I'm not going to say ladies, anybody should have an idea of where a good knee strike should go. Things that you can do to help protect yourself. But tasers, one of the dangers of concealed carry handgun is in some cases they end up used on the victim. They take it from them, and even if they didn't have a weapon, now they have one. But if you had something like a taser or a spray, that's good, that you can use it on them if you have to. And if they did use it on you, it's not fatal. So I think that's a good thing. I just, again, relying on it. If you had pepper spray or something like that, when do you get it out? Do you get it out when you first thought the guy is a creep? Because if you can't get it out, all of a sudden you think, okay, I'm convinced, and he's just a creep. He's not out for anything bad, but he's an idiot guy. And they're out there. We've had them at our open houses. So I think those are good, but your decision in when to get it out is really a tough one to make. So I do think, to add on that creep issue, if the person gives you the creeps, even if he's not going to do anything, let him go. Let the person go. Make it where he'll never want to sell you a house. Say, you know what, I gotta go. Oh, I got a stomach ache. I'm leaving. Call me tomorrow. He's not gonna call you tomorrow. So if you get the creeps or an uneasy feeling about an individual, cut ties with them. Just say, I've got to go. I forgot I left the iron on. The soup's on the stove. Something to get out of there and make it quick. Don't deal with them. And if you're lucky enough to keep them as a customer, do you want them as a customer? Pass. Spend your time on a better. So, and on the creep issue, it's also your instincts. When I talked about if you walk into a house and there's something wrong, you don't even notice the sliding door partially open or the window part, but you feel something about it, trust your instincts, because more often than not, It's a good move, even if it's nothing. Your instincts are valuable. I have over and over as a police officer had people call me about a burglary or whatever it was. Well, I thought, but I thought, oh, I don't want to call the police. Or I just thought that guy looked creepy that was walking around the neighborhood that ended up breaking into their neighbor's house. But I don't know. Their instincts said it was a bad person. It was a bad person. Trust your instincts. You've got a brain for a reason. So use it and you'll be a lot safer. Sergeant Doss.
I would just like to add on the subject of either concealed carry for your personal work as a realtor or carrying a taser or pepper spray. You can carry it, but if you're not trained to use it, it'll do you no good. So the Illinois state requirement is to become a concealed carry holder, you have to have 16 hours of training. That's both classroom and on a range. On a range, you only fire 30 rounds to qualify. You have to fire maybe a little bit more as in practice to show proficiency, but then once you have it, that license is good for, I believe, 5 years. Well, you could never shoot again in 5 years. I can tell an immediate difference in my shooting ability if I don't shoot after 1 month. I can notice lessening of skills. So if you do, train with that. Train with it, drawing it out of a concealed position, because shooting on a flat range at a paper target already in your hand is one thing. Getting it out of your purse is another thing. And if you want to even go a little bit higher, to maybe add some stress, do 10 burpees and then try to draw it out of your purse and then try to shoot. Whole nother world. If you don't want to go to that level, and let's say you carry pepper spray. I can attest to this with my own daughter. She's older and goes to school, so her boyfriend bought her some pepper spray because he wanted her to be safe. Well, I saw it and everything, and I said, well, how do you use that? She didn't know. Well, that's great, you got pepper spray, but you don't know how to use it. So if you buy pepper spray, buy 2. Take it, go outside, well, on a nice calm day with no wind, and just spray it. Because there's stream pepper spray and there's fogger pepper spray. And if it's fogger pepper spray and you go to spray that for the very first time and you don't know it, you are going to get it yourself. And it's not pleasant. You can fight through it, but if you're not expecting that, you're not going to be able to fight through it. Now you become a victim too. Now you're both going to be in that room coughing and hacking and trying to figure out how to get out of there when you can't see when it's difficult to breathe. So just some training occasionally. I mean, and it doesn't, for a weapon, it doesn't have to be every month. But periodically. And use the same type of what, don't buy a .22 pistol to qualify and then decide you're going to carry a Judge, which is a very large caliber handgun as yourself, because it's not the same. Whatever type of weapon you're going to carry on your person, make sure that's the one you train with. That would be my advice on that.
And to add to that, on the shooting, killing it's not a natural act, thank God. If you're placed in a position where you do have to take somebody's life, I know as police officers, the statistics are not really, really good on what's happened to the rest of their lives, even if it's the good shoots, you know, where the guy was doing something absolutely terribly that you couldn't believe. When you take somebody's life, it's something that stays with you forever, and as an individual, you know, your decision to do it, you might not be able to do it when you should. So I don't want you to have that false sense of security with concealed carry, but I do recognize the benefits of it. But you might not be able to use it even if you're in a situation where you can get it out and you can point it and all that. You might not be able to. So, anything else?
I'd like to mention one other thing. That just when he was talking about opioids, like he said, it's very unfortunate that there are a lot of people that are addicted to opioids. A lot of times it occurs unintentionally because they had a back procedure, they had a tooth pain, something like that. If you know of someone that is addicted to opioids, of course, there's lots of different ways to be treated, but if you're concerned about them potentially overdosing, you can go to the same county health department, and they have free Narcan that they will give out to you. So if, just an example, say your daughter-in-law, your son-in-law, your daughter, your son, a neighbor, you know they have this addiction, you can get that for them and you can give it to them, and they can have it.
And that's
100% free.
Yeah.
And that could potentially save their life. Hopefully, when they're ready to receive treatment, they will receive treatment. Unfortunately, a lot of times, because opioids are no joke. I mean, a person usually does not get clean and stay clean the first time. There may be a relapse, and maybe, they've been clean for 5 years, but they relapse. And when they do relapse, it's potentially even more dangerous because they used to be able to do this amount, and they do this amount after not having to do it for 5 years, and now that's a fatal dose. What 5 years before it wasn't. Or maybe there's just a little bit of fentanyl or carfentanil, which is even worse than fentanyl in that, and now it becomes a life-threatening situation. So you can do that anytime, no questions asked. You don't have to give your name. You can say, I would like to get Narcan, and they'll give that to you.
And that's, again, 87,000 deaths, even though all the police, fire, paramedics have it, and a lot of the users have it. They give it to each other, and we still have that many deaths. So the usage, the numbers are something that, it's really something that it's hard to even grasp the thought of how many people are using it. We also have a program at the Springfield Police Department. If you know somebody that has a problem, maybe they recognize it, or maybe they've been denying it forever. Usually, for somebody to get into treatment, sometimes they've made a couple calls and they say, we don't have any beds available, we'll have something available for you next Tuesday. That moment, that one moment where they're willing to do it, and if you don't have, where they looked into it, they don't have that means, because that moment might not last for even an hour. We have, through the police department, some access to treatment at Gateway through us, where we will get them in immediately. So get in touch with me. Get in touch with a police officer. What's the program called?
It's called Operation Safe Passage.
Operation Safe Passage. Now, again, there are a couple, the FB 18, is that one?
Correct.
They can't have a current warrant for their arrest. But other than that, and they can't have utilized that program once in the past. But I think it's a great program because those moments are so cold, solid. We've got, through the department, we can get them in. So get with the police officer, and if the police officer doesn't know about it, and again, we have a couple hundred officers. Let's do some political comments. When I came on, we had 270 some. Now we have 200 teens. Anyway, that's one of the best programs I've seen. So if an officer isn't aware of it, call the front desk. They'll keep calling if you're the one doing it, because an officer who might not be aware, somebody might, and then we'll get you in the program. So, anything else I could talk about? The need for security cameras and all kinds of stuff.
I
Yes.
just have a question. Are there any local self-defense classes that you know of?
I've heard of them on and off, and yes, there
Yeah.
are. And I would, do you know of anybody?
I don't personally.
We've had some officers that would put them on. Have we ever had one here at the association?
No, we had pepper spray training, those types of things, but not actually self-defense.
Unfortunately, I hate to say this word, but the pandemic has put a kibosh on a lot of that stuff, so there just hasn't been anything out there.
True.
But I'm sure they'll come back up. But
They will?
anything like, I know some of the jiu-jitsu places are starting to open back up.
Mm-hmm.
They will offer sometimes one-day trainings for self-defense. I know, I'm not plugging them, but the jiu-jitsu place in Chatham, they have a Thursday evening self-defense class, and I think it's like an hour and a half long. I think probably some of the other martial arts places would do that as well, too.
And what they have, and even if they don't have, right now, if they can get a group of 10 or 15 people together at $20 a pop, you know, we could certainly make arrangements for that. It could be done. So if you want to get something started through the association here, talk to Kathy, and Kathy will get with me, and this would be a perfect room to put down some mats. And
Turn that off though, right?
and I have to go back. You know, if you really wanted something real quick, like, see, YouTube has stuff. It's not everything, but you could probably watch a couple of YouTube videos this afternoon. That would help you a little bit. Now, it's until you've actually done it, and with your, it's not good to practice on your kids or your some of the moves.
I disagree, practice.
Anyway, thank you so much. It's great to have you.